Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by asking you to think about the last time you felt, truly and deeply overwhelmed.
Oh, that is a big question right off the bat.
Yeah, but I don't just mean busy. I mean that specific kind of modern panic where there are just too many notifications, too many
The
choices.
shiny new things.
Exactly. Everyone around you is screaming to move fast and break things.
Yeah, it's the default state for a lot of us right now, isn't it? We are basically drowning in addition.
Mm-hmm.
More apps, more meetings, more ideas.
More noise.
Right.
It feels like the whole world is built on this philosophy of more. But today, we are looking at a personality architecture that operates on the exact opposite principle.
It's a really fascinating pivot.
It is. We're looking at a type that finds its power not in adding to the chaos, but actually in subtraction,
Right, and we are talking about the ASWU profile today.
also known as the quality calibrator.
Yes. And this comes from the Max Energy ME80 personality system. To put it simply, if most of the world is screaming, more, faster, now the quality calibrator is the one quietly standing in the corner asking, why? Is this actually necessary? And more importantly, is it safe?
I think we all secretly wish we had that voice in our heads sometimes.
Definitely.
Now, before we get into the actual mechanics of the subtraction power, I think we need to ground ourselves in the system itself. We are working with the ME80 assessment today. For the listener who is, maybe just joining us or stumbled upon this deep dive, how is this different from a standard personality test?
Well, the big differentiator is that ME80 is about energy mechanics.
Okay.
It's not just about social preferences or behaviors. It doesn't just ask if you like parties or if you prefer libraries. It maps the actual sequence of how your brain processes reality.
How you initiate action, right?
Exactly. How you initiate, how you filter data, and how you manifest energy physically in the real world.
So it's like looking at the source code rather than just the user interface.
That's a great way to put it. And because it looks at the source code, it identifies 80 distinct patterns. Human operating systems, really.
Wow, 80?
Yeah, and today's profile, the quality calibrator, is just one of those 80, but it is arguably one of the most critical systems for stability in a chaotic world.
Stability is definitely a key word here. I was reading through the source material, and there's this core identity statement for the ASWU that really struck me.
A core declaration.
Yeah, it's almost philosophical. It says, between tight and joyful, I draw a line. Through precise subtraction, guarding truly important things.
That is the absolute core of their being.
Between tight and joyful, that sounds poetic, but also a little intense. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, think about the tension between risk and reward. It's like a guitar string.
Okay, a guitar string.
Right. If it's too loose, too joyful, or relaxed, it has no tension. It makes no sound. It's totally useless.
Makes sense.
But if it's too tight, too rigid, anxious, overwhelmed, it snaps. The quality calibrator lives right in that tension. They're constantly tuning the string. They aren't killjoys, but they aren't reckless either. They exist in this highly calibrated middle ground.
So they are the ones ensuring we don't snap the string, but also ensuring we aren't just flopping around making no noise.
Precisely. They use risk perception and quality judgment as their core structure. While other types might be motivated by, say, novelty or winning or connection, the ASWU is motivated by getting it right. They calibrate the global system to ensure it survives.
And that leads us to this concept of precise subtraction. When I hear subtraction, I usually think of loss, having less. But the source material frames this as a literal superpower.
It is a superpower, but you have to reframe how you view resources. Imagine you are a curator at a world-class museum.
Okay.
You have a basement full of 10,000 paintings. If you put all of them on the wall at once, what do you have?
A mess. You can't appreciate anything. It's just visual noise.
Exactly. To create value, the curator has to subtract. They have to say no to the mediocre, no to the damaged, and no to the distracting stuff.
So the one masterpiece can actually be seen.
Right. The quality calibrator applies this exact curator mindset to life decisions. They filter out the noise, bad projects, risky investments, flaky people.
They cut it all away.
Yes, to concentrate their limited energy on the few directions that are actually worthy.
I love that analogy. So by saying no to 20 bad ideas, they ensure the one good idea actually survives.
And that's how they protect the system. Whether that system is their family, their company, or just their own mental health, they are the guardians of what we call the controllable range.
Okay, that makes total sense conceptually. But I want to pop the hood here. The ME80 system breaks this down into an energy matrix. 4 layers, right? IP, IQ, EQ, and manifestation.
Yes, this is the engine of the car.
Let's walk through this layer by layer because the sequence really matters, doesn't it?
The sequence is everything. It is the order of operations for their brain.
So layer 1 is the IP, the inner value layer. The source says for the ASWU, this is direction sense initiates.
Right, this is the ignition. For an ASWU, the car does not start unless there is a clear destination entered into the GPS.
Contrast that for me. How would other types initiate?
Well, some types initiate with impulse.
Right.
Like, I feel like driving fast right now.
Sure.
Others initiate with ideation. What if we built a flying car? But the quality calibrator initiates with direction. Before any energy is released, they need to know, where are we going? Is this the right heading? Is it true north?
So if you walk up to a quality calibrator and say, hey, let's just try this random thing and see what happens, they are going to stall.
They won't just stall, they will likely shut down. If the heading is vague or risky, the energy stops right there at layer 1. They cannot move without a calibrated sense of direction. It is their primary filter.
Okay, so let's assume we have a direction. We know exactly where we're going. The energy then moves to the second layer, IQ, or the emotional activation layer.
Right.
The report lists this as experience and verification judgment. Now, this is interesting to me because emotional activation usually sounds like feelings, but you're telling me their fuel is verification.
Yes. In ME80, emotional activation is just what gets the engine revving. It's what excites the system enough to sustain effort. And for the ASWU, what excites them, or rather what allows them to engage, is proof. They are looking backward to move forward.
Yeah, receipts.
They absolutely need receipts. They are cross-referencing the current situation against a massive internal database of past experiences. Have we seen this pattern before? What did the data say last time?
Did this work 10 years ago?
Exactly.
That sounds incredibly useful, but also, does that make them skeptical of new things?
Highly skeptical. Unlike types who run on novelty, who want to do something because it's never been done, the ASWU is skeptical of the new until it's verified. They're the ones who look at the shiny new tech startup and say, this looks exactly like the bundle of 2000. I have the data.
And if the data doesn't hold up, the energy flow just cuts off.
Completely cuts off.
So we have a direction, and we've verified it with experience. Now we hit layer 3, EQ, the decision calculation layer. This source describes this as emotional perception and resonance. I have to admit, this one threw me a curveball.
How so?
We've been talking about logic, data, verification, and suddenly we have emotional perception. Are they getting sentimental all of a sudden?
Not sentimental at all.
Yeah.
Think of this as a structural integrity check. They aren't just reading the spreadsheet, they are reading the room. But specifically, they are gauging the stability of the people involved.
Oh, so it's not, do I like you? It's, are you reliable?
Precisely. They use emotional resonance as a risk metric. You could present a quality calibrator with the best business plan in the world, verified data, perfect direction.
But if you, the presenter, are acting manic or chaotic,
They're out.
just like that.
Yes. They calculate that the human element is too risky. They're asking, is this team emotionally stable enough to execute this plan? It's like a structural engineer checking the blueprints, but also checking if the construction crew showed up sober.
That is a vital distinction. It really explains why they can sometimes seem judgmental of people's behavior. They aren't trying to be mean, they are assessing risk.
It's a safety check. Everything comes back to safety and stability for them.
Which brings us to the final layer, manifestation. This is how the energy actually shows up in the real world. The source uses keywords like inward, carrying, absorbing, and integrating.
Right. This is the visual. If you watch a quality calibrator in a meeting, especially a crisis meeting, they aren't the ones jumping up and down, waving their arms, projecting energy outward like a spotlight.
They're quiet.
They are still, but their energy operates inward. Think of a high-capacity battery or a heavy anchor. They absorb the weight of the situation. When everyone else is freaking out, the ASWU is taking all that chaotic information, pulling it inside, processing it, and holding the space.
That feels heavy. For them, I mean.
It can be exhausting. Carrying responsibility is physically draining. But for the people around them, it creates this tremendous gravitational pull of stability. You feel safer just standing near them because they aren't vibrating with anxiety. They are grounding it.
So we've got this intricate machine, direction sense, verified by experience, checked against emotional stability, and then manifested as this inward carrying strength. It's a very defensive, protective architecture.
Protective is the perfect word for it.
And that leads us to their deeper internal traits. The report mentions a specific core trait called boundary calibration. We touched on this with the museum curator analogy earlier, but how does this play out in the daily grind?
Boundary calibration is the ability to set the baseline before the game even starts. Most people struggle with boundaries. We say yes because we want to be liked, or we let a project scope creep because we're optimistic.
Right, the classic overpromise.
Exactly. But the quality calibrator excels at drawing the line in the sand immediately.
Give me an example of what that sounds like.
Let's say a client asks for a project to be done in 2 weeks, but quality requires 4 weeks. A different type might say, sure, we'll hustle and make it happen, secretly expecting a miracle.
Which never happens.
Never. The ASWU says no. The baseline for quality is 4 weeks. If we do it in 2, the risk of error increases by 50%. We will not do it.
They literally remove the option of failure by refusing to engage with the conditions that create failure.
Exactly. They proactively subtract the risk. It creates massive trust. If a quality calibrator tells you, yes, we can do this, you know it's actually doable. They do not overpromise.
But, and we have to be honest here, there is a shadow side to this.
There always is.
If you are constantly looking for risks and drawing lines in the sand, surely that can backfire. The source identifies a blind spot called overwarning.
Right. This is where the superpower becomes the stumbling block. When your entire operating system is tuned to detect what could go wrong, you can get stuck in warning mode.
You start seeing ghosts?
You see danger where there is only minor nuance. They might delay a launch because they are 99% sure it will work, but that 1% uncertainty feels like a catastrophic threat to their system.
Analysis paralysis.
Or just becoming the department of knowing it. In a fast-moving environment, like a tech startup or a creative agency, the quality calibrator can be seen as a bottleneck. They might view a calculated necessary risk as reckless endangerment.
So their challenge is to realize that safe doesn't always mean zero risk.
They have to calibrate their own calibration. They need to learn that sometimes speed is a quality metric and that good enough is, well, good enough.
Let's shift gears to how this looks in the wild, specifically in relationships. If you're friends with an ASWU, what are you signing up for? The source calls their social style stable companionship.
They aren't fair weather friends. Because of that carrying and absorbing energy we talked about, they are the rock. They offer true consistency.
They aren't the friend dragging you to a karaoke bar at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday?
Highly unlikely. They are the friend you call at 3 a.m. when your car breaks down. Or the friend who helps you move house and actually organizes the boxes instead of just throwing things in a truck. They are the ones who show up when things go wrong.
Reliable.
Incredibly reliable. But don't expect them to be the hype man. If you have a bad idea, they will tell you it's a bad idea. They won't sugarcoat it to spare your feelings because to them, telling you the truth is how they protect you.
That's a great reframing. Their criticism is actually a form of care. Now, in business, this energy seems crucial. The source highlights something called the retrospective value. I love this term. What does it mean?
This is the absolute vindication of the quality calibrator. It's that moment, 6 months after a project, when the team looks back and says, wow, I'm so glad we didn't buy that software, or I'm so glad we didn't partner with that vendor.
And the quality calibrator is just sitting there, quietly sipping their coffee.
Maybe a slight nod, but yes, their value is often invisible in the moment because prevention is invisible. You don't see the crisis that didn't happen, but in hindsight, you realize they saved the company time, money, and reputation.
They balance safety and efficiency perfectly.
They stop the waste of resources on bad bets. When a retrospect discovers, glad we held back then, that is exactly when the quality calibrator's value gets verified.
So if you are a manager listening to this, where do you put these people? The source lists a few specific professional fields.
There are 4 key areas where they really shine. First, quality assurance. Managing quality, reviewing standards, testing, it's literally in their name. They love finding the flaw so it can be fixed before it goes public.
That makes perfect sense. What's next?
Compliance and governance. Legal roles, risk control, compliance officers. You need someone in that seat who isn't swayed by emotion or charisma. You need someone who looks at the rules and the risks objectively and says, this is the line, do not cross it.
The source also mentions system optimization. This ties back to the subtraction theme, doesn't it?
It does. Process optimization, lean operations. They love looking at a bloated, inefficient workflow and cutting out the waste. They make the machine hum by removing the friction.
And finally, the report mentions professional functions requiring long-term accumulation.
Think of the master craftsman, the specialized surgeon, or the senior archivist. Roles where you simply can't fake it. You need patience, you need to accumulate skill over decades, and you need to maintain a high standard day in and day out.
The stamina for the long game.
Yes. They aren't sprinters. They are marathon runners who check their vitals every single mile.
It's really striking how necessary this energy is. We talked at the beginning about how the world is pushing more, 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 but without the quality calibrator, more just becomes a pile of rubble.
We need the anchors. In a chaotic sea, you might complain that the anchor is heavy when you're trying to haul it up. You might wish the ship was faster. But when the storm hits, and the storm always hits, you are incredibly grateful that the anchor is holding.
I love that image. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the ASWU quality calibrator, let's summarize the mission here.
We have a personality defined by the power of subtraction. They operate on a foundation of direction sense and verified experience. They protect the system by drawing clear boundaries and filtering out the noise. They might struggle with being too cautious at times, but their ultimate value is in keeping us safe, efficient, and sane.
And I want to leave our listeners with the golden sentence from the report. I think this is one to write on a sticky note and put right on your monitor.
Let's hear it.
It says, they maintain through subtraction, letting systems steadily advance between safety and efficiency.
Maintain through subtraction. That is brilliant.
It is something I think you, the listener, can really mull over today. Even if you aren't a quality calibrator yourself, ask yourself, what can I subtract today to make my life run a little smoother?
Often the answer isn't doing more. It's doing less, but better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, strictly for the record, this profile and the concepts we discussed today come from the Max Energy ME80 personality assessment.
It's a dense system, but as we saw today, it's incredibly revealing. If you were listening to this thinking, wait, that's my boss, or that's my partner, or even that's me, it's really worth looking into.
If you want to dig deeper into your own operating system, you can visit their official website at www.maxenergylife.com, or you can search for Max Energy on Facebook. You'll often see it listed with the Chinese characters for Jun Liang Ren Jie Shu. You can also search for Metanergy, accompanied by the characters for Neng Liang Ren Jie Shin Li Shu.
There's a lot more to unpack there. We only scratched the surface of 1 out of 80 types.
Which means we have plenty more deep dives ahead of us. Thank you so much for guiding us through the mind of the calibrator today.
My pleasure. It's always good to appreciate the quiet ones.
Indeed. Until next time, keep exploring and maybe try a little subtraction today. Take care.